as a human being. Now, the Sexual Offences Act, for which I'm happy and I can smile to the same, because I was privy to the formation and the development of the Sexual Offences Act in 2006, when we developed a civil society organization as a private bill, and we shared with Honorable Njoki Ndongo, where now she sits as a judge in the Supreme Court.
Yes.
And she was able to bring it up, and it was taken as a government bill and passed as a law in Kenya, being a statutory legislation, to be able to accord and protect both men, women, and children on sexual offenses cases, being within the purview of sexual violence, looking at two angles: sexual abuse, sexual exploitation, and sexual offenses. Actually, it's at 3 levels. And when you look at that, it's quite elaborate, it's quite broad, and it provides for sexual offenses. Now, in this case, when you look at, for example, within the clip of how the girl is trying to show and demonstrate the kind of offense that has been committed to her, it brings the element of incest, whereby one has sexual intercourse with their direct kin, either being their brother, their sister, their mother, their father. It also brings another offense that is called defilement, which is Section 8 of the Sexual Offences Act. This providing for that if anyone has sexual intercourse with a minor, and a minor is a child, irrespective of whether they have given their consent or not, that person will be deemed to be liable of defilement. And it actually is very broad, because it provides even for the different categories. If one is convicted and found guilty, a child below 11 years to maybe, if I was to say 0 years in case there's something like that, you'll find that if one is convicted guilty of having defiled a child between 0 and 11 years, your automatic sentence is life imprisonment. A child between 12 and 15 years, the law provides that if you're convicted and found guilty, it is 20 years in imprisonment, but the presiding officer, either a magistrate or judge, has got the leeway or discretion to even impose life imprisonment. And a child between 16 and 18 years is actually 15 years in imprisonment, but the judge or the magistrate has got the leeway to impose up to life imprisonment. So the legal framework being the Constitution, the Sexual Offences Act, and the Children's Act of the year 2001 also protects a child from sexual offenses, abuse, neglect, and anything that interferes with their bodily integrity. Yeah.
Well, thank you very much, Tim. Now, viewers, before we continue, we'll take a short break, and when we come back, we'll be joined by Catherine Bao. Of course, if you've been watching Family Matters, you know who Catherine is. She's been working a lot with us, and she'll also be bringing in the counseling or the psychological aspect of the matter we're discussing today, so don't go away.
He would touch me all over and ask me not to tell anybody.
Because where were you when this was happening?
Before, he will tell me that we're just playing a game and I can't tell anybody.
This person might either accept it or deny and reject in totality.
Intervene in letting people know how people are being dragged by desires in their hearts, you know.
Welcome back to the show. If you're joining us right now, you're watching Family Matters, a program designed to look into and solve problems affecting families. Today, we have panelists in the studio, and our topic of discussion is about pedophilia. A lady in the studio also, who will introduce herself before we continue.
My name is Catherine Bao. I'm a counseling psychologist in private practice.
Discussion has just begun, and probably about the case we are handling today, a very sensitive issue, and an issue that to most of the victims or people closely related to the victims or survivors of the same, we find that it has a lot of physical, effects, but also there is the psychological aspect of it, where you find a father defiling a child. Now, a child imagining this is my father, someone who is supposed to love me, and is the one who is subjecting me to this pain and torture.
Most of the time, a psychologist will say this is a child who will need support at every milestone of their life. When they reach puberty, they will need help. When they get married, they will need help. When they're about to get children, they'll need help. When their children are getting out of home, they'll need help. The state of mind is betrayal, mistrust, abandonment, rejection, guilt, shame, self-hate, and their self-esteem is also affected during that time. For them to understand how the person that they trusted most could do this to them affects them. There's another condition that might come out of it again. They might identify with the person who's inflicted the abuse on them. If they identify with that, which we call Stockholm Syndrome, sometimes we might not be able to even put that person to face legal charges because they might believe forcefully that this is the right way to live. There are several ways they do this. Others might accept the Stockholm Syndrome will make them see that this person loves me because they cannot identify with their own father or parent or mother abusing them or an uncle. So they might identify with that abuser. The other way is they might reject that abuser and reject everyone else that reminds them of that abuser. Meaning that if it's a male, they will reject female and they will try to correct that by either hating them or by being sexually promiscuous, or sometimes some psychological pathology like psychopaths and everything are a genesis of that too.
Okay.
The other way that would be they might never want to have families because they'll hate themselves and they'll see this happened to me because of me. They believe that everything happened because they contributed to all that, which in reality is not.
Sure.
It's the abuser who is on the wrong, but they'll need to go through counseling sessions to accept that it wasn't my fault. It was the abuser. I was innocent. And I need to let go to move on. Yeah.
Maybe, Tim, before Catherine came in, you were telling us about the avenues or the legal avenues that the new constitution, or let's say the Sexual Offence Act, brought, into being to support such kind of cases.
In one way or another, you tend to find that because the bottom line of what you're seeking is justice.
Yes.
In the courts of law. And the survivor is a key personnel towards contributing to the kind of evidence that will be adduced before the court, because that information will heavily be relied in respect to what will give out towards either the ruling or the sounding judgment in the overall of the case. And a survivor being a key personnel who needs to give evidence, and in most times you tend to find that they're the first witnesses. It's actually very complex, and because this person might either accept it or deny and reject in totality. So that can either build your case or it can either dilute your case towards seeking justice.
Also, Pastor, maybe if I may just ask, these things happen. Some of the people who commit these things are actually the churchgoers, the elders, the evangelists, even the pastors. Sometimes we find them in this kind of mix. How does the church, or how should the church come in, and what role should they play in seeing to it that this kind of abuses in the society are curbed, or kind of taming this kind of behavior in the society?
Just as you are putting it, actually, everyone is a culprit in this issue, We cannot say, since this is a man of God, a pastor or a bishop, an elder of a certain church, he could never involved in those things, They are indeed also part of the people who are perpetrating this kind of evils in the society. Just some 2-3 months ago, I was called in a meeting in a place in Nairobi. And that was a meeting of women who are involved in sexual, commercial business,
commercial
sex, yes. we wanted to know who are their customers. So they mentioned even pastor, they mentioned bishop, they mentioned all sorts of people in the society. The church actually, you know, should be able to intervene in letting people know how people are being dragged by desires in their hearts, you know. You see, even though right now I'm here, I'm being dragged by something. So the father or even the child or even the mother, all of the people, they are dragged. Actually, you know, even though people say, I'm free, I can do anything. If anyone is free from being bound to God, to the love of God, to the, you know, to the care that comes from above, he's going to be bound to the things that are there, you know, in the world. You know, he's going to be bound by sexual desires, bound to any sorts of kinds of evil. If I'm free to God, right? So that means God doesn't have any power on me. I'm just living my own life the way I want it. So eventually, it doesn't matter whether I'm going to church or not. Eventually, I'm going to be caught up, and I'm going to be bound to such kind of evil things. So the church, unfortunately, it has lost this power. No, we should be able to bind people back to God, back to the love of God, back to the care that comes from God, so that, you know, everyone becomes a God-fearing person. As a pastor, I had a case the other day. That was a case whereby a child, a son actually, you know, raped the mother. And, you know, I wanted to know exactly the reason why this child was doing these things to the mother. He said, I heard, that was a story just I heard, and this story also was not like publicized, you know, to many people. I heard that the child was, you know, raping the mother because the mother was suspected to have killed the father of the boy, and she was like, you know, behaving loosely. So the boy said, you know, come on, you know, this is the reason why I killed my father. I will show you that I'm also a man. So in that situation, the mother ran away, you know. But all these things are taking place because